public health leaders have declared racism a public health crisis. Therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Reynoldsburg, we do hereby recognize April as National Public Health Month and call upon the people of Reynoldsburg to help our families, friends, co-workers, and leaders to better understand the value of public health and support great opportunities to adopt preventative lifestyles, habits to build bridges to better health.
Are there any questions or comments from council? May I have a motion to recognize National Public Health Month? Councilmember Paccarell, is there a second?
Second. Councilmember Strickland.
Thank you, Councilmember Strickland. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a public hearing. There are 2 items set for a public hearing. Would the clerk please read item 1?
An ordinance approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of a joint economic development district contract by and between Etna Township and the City of Reynoldsburg, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Would anyone like to make a comment on this ordinance?
I like to make a brief comment on this ordinance. I just want to briefly say that this has been a long time coming, and that the partnership between the West Joint
That Councilmember Baker, that agenda item isn't up yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was reading I need to scroll my agenda down. But I do want to say on this one that this is a good economic development for the city of Reynoldsburg and for Etna Township, because we both benefit from this, and it shows economic growth, not just within Etna Township, but also Reynoldsburg as well.
Do we have any other comments on this ordinance? If there's no further comments, the public hearing on this ordinance is closed. Would the clerk please read item 2?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a governmental aggregation program agreement with Volunteer Energy Services, Inc. to provide full requirements for retail natural gas and related administrative services to an aggregated group.
Would anyone like to make a comment on this ordinance?
Madam President, I do believe we have a Representative Larry Taylor from this group that would like to say a few words and answer any questions from council. Thank you for joining us this evening, Larry.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. The great thing about the gas aggregation program is that it's a guaranteed savings for the residents. Guaranteed 8% discount for all the SCO Columbia Gas customers. The other nice thing about it is that the owner of Volunteer Energy, living in Pickerington, we consider you guys neighbors. And when we initially presented this aggregation program, he wanted to do something that he normally doesn't do for our over 200 aggregation programs, and that's provide a civic grant. We provide a civic grant of 5 cents back to the city of Reynoldsburg for every MCF of gas used. And I checked my notes, and I believe it was November, we were able to present a civic grant check back to the city of Reynoldsburg in the amount of $24,000. That's something that Rick Cornute at Volunteer Energy is very proud of, that he is able to help support our neighboring communities. So I'm here tonight to answer any questions and ask for renewal of the gas aggregation program.
Does anyone on council have any questions or comments regarding this ordinance, or any questions for Mr. Taylor?
I do. So again, it's a guaranteed savings, but it's not a requirement that any resident stay in this. So could you explain just a little bit more so we make sure, because I'm sure as Mr. Dorman and the mayor will share, aggregation programs tend to get confusing to residents and even frustrating. They field phone calls, and I've been through this quite a few times with the setup, but I think there's some important things to point out that, this would seem like the time to make sure we try to share a little bit more about how the program would work and what volunteer really is going to do to help make this a smooth program for the residents of Reynoldsburg.
Sure, thank you. The gas aggregation program is considered an opt-out program, which means that all SCO customers of Columbia Gas are automatically put in the aggregation program. And I mentioned the guaranteed 8%. It's pretty much that simple, that each resident that's in the aggregation program is guaranteed to save 8% off of what the price would have been through Columbia Gas. Does that help answer the question? I think the other question you mentioned too is that I myself would be happy to help take calls, answer calls. We're set up at Volunteer to be able to, if anybody at the city would like to pass that information along to us to field those calls, we would be happy to do that.
And how many years now? Again, it was 24,000 back in the fall. How much has Volunteer given back to the city of Reynoldsburg? Do you happen to know how many years and approximately how much has been given back in grants?
Well, it's been 4 years, so it's I believe it's close to $100,000. And again, the grant, not everyone is in the aggregation program. They've opted out. Some residents choose to pick their own supplier, which is all fine. But the nice thing about the civic grant is that the council, the administration, you guys have the opportunity to take that civic grant and use it for the benefit of everybody in the community. So that's one of the nice things about the civic grant. It helps everybody in the community.
Thank you. Oh, and another quick question. This is the gas program. I don't know, maybe this is for Mr. Dorman or the mayor about whether electricity and does Volunteer do electricity? I don't know. This may be a three-pronged question about, I mean, with this grant and the relationship with Volunteer, is that something that we're looking into or that we have or that Volunteer does? Do you do electricity, and how would that program work?
We are an electric supplier as well. Mayor Begany or Mr. Dorman, would you like to address that, or?
Yeah, we'd be happy to have those kind of conversations. I just don't think we've gotten to that point specifically just yet, but that's obviously something that can be discussed amongst council as well as with Mr. Dorman. So
they don't run concurrently. I don't remember when our aggregation time frame. So we're just on the gas. We're not at the electric then. They're staggered. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, we would thank you for that question. We'd certainly love to entertain the fact to present an aggregation program. I've spoken with Mr. Canute at Volunteer Energy, and he would be happy to propose a civic grant for the electric program as well. Just the way that the numbers work out, the civic grant for electric tends to be a little bit higher. So yeah, I would be happy to speak with Mr. Dorman and Mr. Begany and see if that's something that we can address, and maybe I could come back again and speak with somebody, or come back again and speak with council if you felt that was appropriate.
Yeah, this is Director Dorman. Yeah, we have had conversations with Larry about this too. I know that the city has been with similar to Larry's company, has been with a company that has done the other aggregation as well. But you're right, Councilmember Cotner. We are currently talking to the other company that does the aggregation. They are staggered slightly, but just ever so.
Thank you very much, Larry, for coming in. I appreciate it. I know it was a long time. We were trying to get the schedule right to get you here. But maybe next time when you come back in November, hopefully by that point in time, we better be back in council chambers.
I appreciate that, but we appreciate the opportunity and I don't mind waiting. I appreciate it.
I have one question regarding you said opting out. Will residents know when they're enrolled in this program and when their opportunity is to opt out? Will they receive a letter, a phone call, an email, or when will this take place or when will this start?
Yeah, we are required. It doesn't expire till the end of July. The aggregation program that we have now. So the end of June, July, we're required by the PUCO to send out a letter letting them know about the aggregation program, explaining it to them and giving them an opportunity to opt out. There's no penalties or fees to opt out. And anybody that over a period of time, anybody that misses that deadline who wants to opt into the program can certainly do that easy by just making a phone call to volunteer and we can opt them in.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have any other comments regarding this ordinance? If there's no further comments, the public hearing on this ordinance is now closed. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Yes.
Thank
Madam
you.
President, can you hold the meeting for just a moment? Attorney Shook, there is a message we received from a resident saying we needed to redo the public hearing because of technical difficulties. I wasn't aware of any during the technical difficulties. I believe the last motion regarding the National Public Health Month may have been missed. But that's what.
The comment refers to, I believe, the JET agreement just prior to this particular, just prior to the energy
I
aggregation.
wasn't aware of any Facebook difficulties during.
Neither was I, just relaying
Well,
the
Right.
conversation.
Molly, I think it was that I was looking at the number of people on the meeting, and when we came back live, there was hardly anybody on the meeting, so it took
This was my last
5
text
minutes or
here.
so for people to get on. So I think a lot of people missed it, even though we were technically live.
Well, I want Attorney Shook to make a call on this because we don't want to do anything that is not correct for this public hearing for the JED.
Yeah, so one of the difficult things with broadcasting these meetings on Facebook is that while it's live, I can't go back and see what was broadcast or not broadcast before. However, I could see what the meeting looked like when we started the new stream. I could see that Councilmember Baker was speaking at the moment the news stream started, and I know that he was speaking after we called for the opening of the public hearing on the JED. So that would tell me that at least a portion of that public hearing was not broadcast live on Facebook, and I would ask council to redo that public hearing so we can ensure that it is broadcast live on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Shook, for
Mhm.
that clarification. Madam President, if you would
Yes.
just reopen the public hearing, and I'll read it again, and we'll go through that process again.
Okay, item 8, public hearing. There are 2 items set for a public hearing. Would the clerk please read item 1?
An ordinance approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of a joint economic development district contract by and between Etna Township and the city of Reynoldsburg, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Would anyone like to make a comment regarding this ordinance? Councilmember Baker, you're on mute.
Well, since we're redoing it, a short version of what I said was I think this is a great economic agreement for both Etna Township and Reynoldsburg. And I'll leave it at that.
Do we have any other comments regarding this ordinance? If there's no further comments, the public hearing on this ordinance is closed. Do
Thank
we
you.
need to redo the other public hearing, Molly?
I don't believe we do. I think that one was broadcast in full fairly effectively.
Okay, thank you. And
Can
thank you
we,
again, Mr. Taylor.
can,
Yes,
can we just real quick, if we notice an issue like that coming up, whether it's brought up by a member of the public or noticed by a member of council or anyone else, we need to bring that to the attention of the group as soon as possible so that we can stop discussion on the record until it gets rebroadcast at that point. So let's be very careful about that. I know we've been doing this for a while, so I'm a little surprised that these issues happen today this way, but I do want to make sure we're being careful here. So thank you.
thank you.
I believe these issues are a result of a disconnection of the equipment and a reconnection, and you never know what to expect when we share this seat. So
Yeah, no, and I think Molly and Jennifer Clemens have done just a tremendous job throughout the course of the pandemic and making sure that these meetings are handled properly and broadcast properly. So thank you, guys.
thank you.
Next, we'll be moving on to item 9 on the agenda, which consists of our reports. Item A is liquor permits. Chief Baker, welcome.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, members of council. This investigation was completed for a new liquor permit application for Three Guy Dragon Express LLC located at 7524 East Main Street. The business will be operated as Dragon Express Kitchen. The location formerly operated as Carnival Ice Cream. The business is owned by 4 different individuals. The liquor permit is for a D1, D2 class, which permits the sale and consumption of beer on premises or in original sealed containers for carryout until 1 a.m. We checked police calls at the location from 2011 to 2021 and found no request for police at this location. The Ohio Department of Liquor Control advised our investigator that the owners have no other active liquor permits and they know of nothing that would prevent the permit from being issued. I do not request a hearing for this permit application. Any questions?
you. If there's no questions, we'll move on to item B, West Licking Joint Fire District Report, Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be brief because for those who want to look at the report, it is attached to the agenda. Just wanted to say outstanding. The West Licking Joint Fire District 404 has done an outstanding job servicing Reynoldsburg, and the numbers continue to be, the response times continue to be great, even though there's been an increase in population. So I just want to leave it there, but thank you to the firemen and firewomen who are serving at that station and serving Reynoldsburg.
Thank you.
Madam President, may I just make one quick comment? The firehouse, West Licking Fire, was instrumental in saving as much of a house as possible, a stone's throw away from where I lived just a few weeks ago. They were there, I think by the time somebody saw smoke, they were there before I could walk to that location. And I'm not that slow, but they were there in the blink of an eye. And, you know, people's lives are saved. People's lives are impacted by how quickly they were able to respond. And mere moments after that, RPD was there and Turo Township was there. It was an amazing thing to see in such potential danger. And so again, I echo the councilman's statements on thank you for all of their hard work in that particular regard.
Yes. Next, we'll move on to item C, which is Development, Parks and Recreation Committee. Councilmember Baker.
I didn't get my agenda together. This is the Development, Park and Recreation Committee for April 12th, 2021. Okay, I'm Members in attendance are Councilmember Cotner, Councilmember Lawson Rowe, Councilmember Paccarel, myself, and you, Madam President. The first item on the agenda is an ordinance to amend, remove, and add various sections to Chapter 971 Municipal Parks in the Code of Ordinance for the City of Reynoldsburg. Since Director Bauman is on the beach having a good time, Mayor, would you like to speak on this legislation?
Yes, we spoke on this issue the last time. Basically, it's just updating and modernizing our codes to make it more in line with existing state codes. City Attorney Shook can ask more specific questions to it. I believe Director Bauman went through a number of particular items that were changed in the last meeting. City Attorney Shook, anything else to?
Yes, this was on for a work session at the last meeting. There have been no changes to the proposed legislation since the last meeting. I would note this is the first major rewrite of Chapter 971 in about 18 years, and Director Bauman put a lot of work into this. I was just grateful to be able to provide any assist.
Okay. Thank you for your work, and thank you to Director Bauman for her work in putting this together. Is there any questions from the committee? Any from council? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to make a motion that we forward this ordinance on the council for first reading. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Paccarel. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Okay, seeing none, ordinance will pass on the council for its first reading.
Thank you.
And that's out. Back to you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next, we have Public Safety Law and Courts Committee. In Council Member Bryant's absence, we will have Council Member Lawson Rowe.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the Public Safety Law and Court Committee meeting for April 12, 2021. Members in attendance are Council Member Cotner, Council Member Paccarel, Acting Chair, Council Member Lawson Rowe, and you, Madam President. Item 1, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the sale of real property located on Taylor Road to the West Licking Joint Fire District, said property consisting of 10.598 acres. Attorney Shook or Councilmember Baker, do you have comment on this legislation?
I will go ahead and say it. I jumped the gun earlier, but I was excited that this has made the agenda for today because this has been a long time coming, as I previously mentioned, and that the men and women of Fire Station 404 welcome a new fire station. I have toured the storefront fire station, as it's called, and looking at the amenities and the lodging of that current fire station, it is very cramped out. Basically it out uses use. So we need something that is more permanent and something that will let the fire district grow as we grow in Reynoldsburg and the western part of Licking County. And so I worked with Attorney Shook, Director Bowser, the mayor, and the fire chief and assistant fire chief to get this together so we can move forward and build this new firehouse, which is sorely needed. And so I'm going to say that. It's second. Well, Attorney Shook, did you want to say anything before I mention something else?
Yeah, just a brief overview. This is a 10.5 acre parcel of land that is on the west side of Taylor Road in between the Taylorwood subdivision and the Limited. This is a parcel of land that was gifted to the city back in 2003 by a subsidiary corporation of the Limited. When it was given to the city, there was a deed restriction that the city could only use it for a public park. And so part of our process of negotiation here with this transfer was to get that deed restriction lifted. It is going to be modified as we transfer it to West Licking, that it can only be used for a fire station and for the construction and use of a bike path, which is the significant amenity for the city that motivated us to enter into this, as well as having a fire station located closer to our residents here in the Licking County part of city.
And what I was going to ask is for the committee is if we could put a 2-read emergency on this. And the reason why I asked that is because back in October, when we were asked L Brands to lift the deed restriction on it, it took from that all the way to now for that to finally be lifted so we can move forward. In between that process, the West Joint Licking Fire District was moving on their end to assure that there's an efficient timeline of developing a firehouse on this property. But since we had hit that about basically 9 months stag, it really messed up our timeline. So to get us at least close to being back on track, I asked for a 2-read emergency to be added on this. I'm not a big fan of adding on emergencies, but this has been known out. This has been known out here for a long time, at least 9 months. We started on this process back in August of last year. So to keep the fire district on a decent timeline, even though we're kind of playing catch up at this point because of that snag, I will ask the committee to add a 2-read emergency onto this.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
So I have a comments on this one. So thank you, Councilmember Baker, for explaining the details about the Attorney Sook, what is this about. So I think it's so very important to have this thing, fire station in our city. So things have been happening, and I think it needs to happen as early as possible. So I think I'll support that idea of going through emergency for this particular legislation.
Are there any comments?
Madam Chair, you might ask Councilmember Baker to make an amendment, make a motion to amend the ordinance to add the emergency. So that'll be prepared for the next reading.
Thank you. Thank you, Molly. Councilmember Baker, would you please amend the motion so that whenever it's offered, it's amended correctly?
Yes, Chairwoman. I'd like to amend this ordinance to add a 2-read emergency into the language.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I move that we forward this ordinance to council for first read.
As amended.
As amended.
Thank you.
Okay, as there is no further business.
We need a second. I didn't hear a second.
I second it.
Oh, okay, thank you. No, you seconded it to move it forward to council for the first reading as amended.
As amended.
Okay, thank you.
As there's no further business for the public.
You still got to take a vote though.
Well, get me together. I apologize.
Council member Pacquiao second to move it forward, and you have to take the vote to move it forward.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion?
Is there any further discussion? I move that we forward.
No, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So this ordinance will be forwarded to council for first reading.
This ordinance will be forwarded to council for first reading. Whew. As there's no further business for the Public Safety, Law, and Courts Committee, I return this meeting to you, President Jenkins.
Thank you. We will move on to our next report, which is Public Service and Transportation Committee. And that will be with Councilmember Strickland.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I do apologize to council for being late. My husband had a bad accident, a cycling accident, but he's doing fine now. So I apologize. This is the Public Service and Transportation Committee meeting for April the 12th, 2021. Members in attendance are Councilmember Cotner, Councilmember Lawson Rowe, Councilmember Pacquiao, myself, and President Jenkins. Item number 1, an ordinance to establish Chapter 701, Landlord-Tenant Relationships of the Codified Ordinance for the City of Reynoldsburg. This legislation is being brought back to committee after not having received a second to move the legislation to council. I will turn this over to Attorney Shook if you would like to make any remarks regarding this legislation.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Strickland. This is the ordinance that had been presented previously to City Council as a work session several meetings ago, and then had been presented in committee with a request to forward it for a first read. At that point, I believe there was a motion to move this ordinance for a first read, but it did not receive a second. My understanding is that Councilmember Baker, who is the sponsor of this legislation, would like to represent it and see if it can be moved forward.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? Yes, Councilmember Cotner.
Thank you. Councilmember Baker, I guess starting there, since there was nothing moving forward last time, or maybe it's to Attorney Shook, what's changed? Are we different with language, or there's support of something changing? I mean, I'm kind of curious when, usually a couple weeks later, we don't see something back again that didn't go through. So did I miss something different in here, or what's the thought, or what's going on there?
So I wanted to give council more time to think about this. So that's why I waited a month to bring this back. And for any changes that or any concern, there were a council member that wanted to make changes, but hadn't submitted to me yet. So even though this is still the first read, there's still plenty of time to submit changes if so be. And so I thought, well, let's get it on the agenda. Let's get the ball rolling. So at any time, if anybody wants to make any changes to it, they still can, even though I provided a month to go by for any feedback for anything like that. So that is the reason why this is being brought back. And I wanted to make sure that there was ample time, instead of bringing it back 2 weeks, that I waited a month to do this.
Okay, so again, a month later, are there changes then, Attorney Shook, or is this the same document?
Councilmember Cotner, I've made no changes to the document. None were requested.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Cotner. Are there any other questions from council regarding this legislation? All right, I move we forward this ordinance to council for a first reading. Is there a second?
I second it. So I found that after going through this legislation.
Wait,
and-
one second, because I already have a motion out there. So
Oh.
you second. All right. I will second by Councilmember Peckrell. Any further discussion?
Okay, I'm just seconding putting my discussing my point. Let me put my point here. So I read through this and I related it to my own experience at myself and the experience of many people like me. And I found this legislation is important for us in Reynoldsburg. So that's why I'm supporting this and I second this.
Thank you, Councilmember Peckrell. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Item number 2, an ordinance granting an easement to the Ohio Bell Telephone Company, AT&T Ohio, for the placement of a small cell tower on 0.09 acre city-owned tract known as parcel 060-000-215-00. Attorney Shook.
Thank you, Councilmember Strickland. I would actually defer to Director Bowsher on this item of legislation. I did draft the easement agreement, but I believe that most of the negotiation took place with the Development Department.
Thank you, Attorney Shook. Chairman Strickland, other members of council. This one is before you tonight. AT&T, if you know, they are placing 5G towers all along our major corridors to provide great access and amenities for cellular reception and data services throughout the city. One of the ones that they did a little hastily, and it was brought to my attention by the mayor that they had placed it far too far into our right of way. And so we had asked them to relocate. It's definitely in our downtown area, so it's a hub. And certainly we're starting our streetscape project, so we're coordinating with them, relocating it. They're actually going to be relocating it in our landscape buffer that is at the parking lot just to the west of Prost Beer and Wine Cafe. The idea being it gets it up out of our streetscape and we can conduct necessary, and it doesn't lose access for ADA compliance on our streetscape and sidewalk as it currently does now. So this right-of-way access is to allow them to put it on our property, and therefore they would pay an annual fee to us to be able to utilize their pole inside of our jurisdiction. The typical application fee is $200, and then they will pay an annual fee of $200 additional per year.
Thank you, Director Bowser. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation?
Councilmember Strickland, this is the auditor. I'd just like to make a comment, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. First, our prayers are with your husband, and I hope he is he heals fast. I know he's a strong man, so our prayers are all with you. Secondly, the cell phone tower makes the Memorial Plaza a taxable. The area it's going to be on is going to be a taxable area, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that the fee that's charged should be able to match the taxes that we're going to be charged for the property. Every cell phone tower in Reynoldsburg that's on city property is taxed with property tax, and I'm investigating that now.
Thank you for that information, Auditor Sisay. Are there any other questions from the committee? From council? All right, I move we forward this ordinance to council for a first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Item number 3, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Strasser Paving Company for construction services pertaining to the 2021 street improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman, Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Director Dorman, would you like to make any comments?
Yes, so as everyone may be familiar, I apologize for the emergency reads on these. I know as we've had some discussions about charter review next year, hopefully we can find some ways to look at resolutions or other ways to help us out with some of these projects that require more of a quicker time turnaround, basically. So this is for our street project this year. We opened bids a few weeks ago. Obviously, we open up the bids early in the late in the winter, early spring, so the contractors can get out there first summer to start this work. Obviously, our engineer then takes and has to review the bid tabs and make sure all the numbers make sense, and then they provide a letter of recommendation. I think in your packet you also received their letter of recommendation, as well as a copy of the bid tab for this project, our annual street program. We had, I think, 3 bids for the main portion of the project, and Strouser Paving was the lowest. We have worked with them many times in the past. And once again, apologize for the emergency reads. Several of the ordinances you're going to see are all tied to this road program that obviously we want to get the contractor engaged in and starting as soon as they can.
Thank you, Director Dorman. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? Yes, Councilmember Cotner.
Well, okay. We know that emergency readings, become a buzzword, like we're somehow afraid to pass something as an emergency. It's a good function that we need to be able to utilize. So I'm no problem with the concept of council utilizing emergencies, but I do have a significant problem with one read, one introduction emergencies, and these need to be avoided, any way possible. I don't know how, we expect to present something to council and pass it on the same night without allowing any communication. That's not the same as a typical something that passes as an emergency. So an introduction and one read is something that we need to find ways to avoid those kind of things. So, but again, emergency language is part of our process to make sure something happens, but the introduction and passage, I think that's the problem where I have there.
Thank you, Councilmember Cotner. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. Item number 4, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with American Pavement Incorporated for construction services pertaining to the 2021 Street Improvement Project Contract B, crack ceiling, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Director Dorman?
Yes, once again, this is part of our street program. This year, what we did was we broke it down into a few different components. As you are aware, and we've talked about in the past, the city has really kind of not done a lot of preventive maintenance on our roadways. I know times were tough, and once the levy passed, more money was available for road work, but until then, a lot of Band-Aids were done, and we really didn't do anything to kind of improve the longevity of our roads. We basically waited till we got to such a point where we had to completely reconstruct them. In doing some of these other measures, we can actually prolong the life of the road, anywhere upwards of 5 to maybe even 10 years if done properly. This contract, so what we did is we took our basic street program and we broke it down into the main portion, which is mostly just milling and repaving. And then there is the preventative maintenance portion. There's 2 parts of the preventative maintenance portion. Most of that work is proprietary. So for us to include that in the actual bid it really wouldn't have done us any good. We would have got the same contractor to bid on it, and we'd had to pay a 5% markup to our prime contractor. So we pulled those out and saved some money. And once again, it's just the construction season. I understand Mr. Cotner's request. And obviously, I hate to do that as well. It's just when it comes to these road contracts, it was other than us going out and like we talked about with the trucks and trying to put them out, prior to even having a budget pass. It's just we're trying to get through this in a quick way and to honor the contracts. The language in the contract requires us that we sign and enter into agreement within so many days once the bids are open. So, but once again, this is for preventative maintenance for our road program. I think once again in your packet, it kind of outlined the details.
You just lost Councilmember Strickland. Her bandwidth must have froze. So I'm sure she'll reconnect here in just a moment. This has not been a very good technical meeting today.
You're earning your pay today, Mom.
What's that book? A really bad, awful, terrible day.
I was thinking she was trying to be very dramatic and waiting for comments.
Then I noticed that her face was frozen. There she is.
Sorry about that. I thought it was Director Dorman that it was me that actually lost connectivity. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? All right. Any from council? I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Oppose? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measures. Item number 5, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Pavement Technologies Incorporated for construction services pertaining to the 2021 Street Improvement Project Contract C, asphalt rejuvenation, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Go ahead, Director Dorman.
Yes, once again, this is the second part of the preventative maintenance program. The one we just discussed is called crack sealing. If you drive down the road, a lot of times you'll see kind of these lines that basically are designed to seal the cracks in the road and prevent the water from getting in there and cracking and freezing and thawing and destroying the pavement. This is for a product called Rejuvenator or Reclamite, which is a product that that replaces basically the petroleum product. And so every year when we're out plowing the road, we're scraping a little bit of that roadway off every year. What this does is basically puts more petroleum product down and fills in all the voids and other preventative maintenance that's done typically 2 years or so after the roadway's been installed.
Thank you, Director Dorman. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? From council?
I've got a question.
Okay, go ahead, Director Cotton. I'm sorry, Councilmember Cotner.
So Mr. Dorman, you had mentioned, obviously in years past, street budget was limited. We all know that, just barely to get by. I know crack sealing is something that's been done, overdone. This is something is this the new part then that you were kind of referring to that's more of a proprietary thing? Because I'm not a street expert by any means, but I've not heard of asphalt rejuvenation.
Yeah, it is. It's a product I've used for many, many years in my previous city experience. It is a proprietary. I mean, we knew we'd probably get only one bid on this, and we did. And it's very cheap, but it is a very good product. And the nice thing about this product is when it's done, it's basically sprayed on the street. But after it's applied, you can actually drive on the street within about 30 minutes. So, and when you're done, it looks like a brand new street. And it needs to be done typically 3 to 5 years max after the roadway has been installed. And it'll increase the life, 7 to 8 years probably on the roadway.
So it's similar in concept of top sealing your driveways and top sealing your parking lots?
That's a good example. Yeah, it basically takes all those voids in the aggregate and fills it up with, it's just sand and kind of a petroleum mix. They run it, almost looks like if you ever follow a truck in the wintertime when they're brining the road, it's similar to that. It has these spray guns on the back. It just drives down the road, shoots it on the road, and then they drop some sand on top of it and then come and broom it in, and then they're done.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the question.
Thank you, Director Cotner. I'm sorry, Councilmember Cotner. Any other questions? All right, I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Oppose? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. Item number 6, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Strouser Paving Company for construction services pertaining to the 2021 sidewalk improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Director Dorman.
Yes, thank you. So this, as we've talked about in the past, is the city is actually starting a sidewalk program this year again. So we are going to be looking at the streets where we are already going to be doing the work on. The idea behind this is we're going to go in that area. We're going to go in there once. We're going to look at the lights. We're going to look at the signs. We're going to do everything we need to do, repair it, replace it, and get out of there. So that way we're not disrupting the property owners, continuously with little things that need to be done. So we will do a sidewalk inspection. The interesting thing, the streets we're looking at this year surprisingly do not have a ton of work that needs to be done. But what we'll do is we'll go out and do an inspection of all the sidewalks in those areas. Every property owner will be notified of the work that needs to be done. They can then choose to have the work done by their own contractor or opt with the city's prices. And we will do the work. They can either pay the city directly or have it assessed to their property tax bill the following year. This is a well-needed program in the city, as we've talked about in the past, trying to become a walkable community. People with strollers, not just people with mobility issues, people with strollers, kids on rollerblades, things like that. Right now, we do look at these issues on a complaint-driven basis. Unfortunately, if my code enforcement officers did this, they would be out there kind of all day writing up people for sidewalks. If they're very bad, obviously we bring it to people's attention, or if someone calls and complains about it, we do. But this is a good way to hit a little bit of the city every year throughout each ward and throughout the entire city and take a little piece at a time. And eventually I think we'll get there where we see some major improvements.
All right, thank you, Director Dorman. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation?
I have a question and a comment.
Yes.
So the first is comment. Thank you. This sidewalk thing that you are bringing it up, so important, great. So I have a question here. So this, what I understood is like, we are offering a services to the community members rather than we are reconstructing or putting money and fixing that. Is that something we're attending here, or like, did I not understand that clearly?
I think we're trying to do a good job about, getting that out. It's going to be an ongoing public relations and education process. We will obviously mail letters to all these residents. I think a lot of people struggle to understand that they're responsible for the sidewalk in front of their property. I think most people think, it's not. I mean, I think that's why a lot of them are the way they are, because people don't realize it's their responsibility. So I think, we try and educate people on it. We provide them the ORC where it calls it out, and I think they understand it. This, though, takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for them. I think for a lot of people, you can't just go to Home Depot and buy a bag of Quikrete and put a sidewalk panel. It's a different type of concrete. We have to inspect it, make sure it's poured with correct thickness, the right concrete's used. It's at the right time of year. But this does allow residents to go out and select their own contractor if they want to. Now, typically, because we're bidding this out as part of our street program, when we have a lot of concrete work in our street program, the prices we get are typically considerably better than anything they're going to get going out on their own. So that's the idea behind this too. It helps them.
Yeah, especially the tree roots thing in my ward that are around 10 members of the community, like around last year around this time. People called, I went there, look at that, and I think I reached out to your office, I think Mayor and Director Dorman. So now you're bringing this back. Thank you. That's a big need in the community. I am hoping that this will definitely address those concerns of the members of the community.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Chairwoman, may I offer a comment or a question?
Yes, Council Member Lawson Rowe.
Director Dorman, thank you for introducing this. And I know we've talked about this in great deal. I'd like to also add, if there's a possibility, whenever you do address these different areas, if there's areas where sidewalks stop for whatever reason, I know that there are some in my ward specifically that there's sidewalks and then all of a sudden it stops and then it picks back up, or it stops and never picks up until it gets to a main road.
Yes, I completely hear that and understand that. I know that, as we see development taking place, we will require the developers, as Director Bowser can talk about, to install that in front of the frontage of their property. Like MI Homes is a good example. All that frontage along Wagner, they're going to put an 8-foot leisure path in. And I do have some fairly good news to maybe announce, but as we're talking about that Graham Road section, we're having some very good conversations with the county engineer on that. The city and the county engineer, sounds like we're going to be working hand in hand. They may take up the portion getting across the bridge, and we'll build everything up to the bridge. So that's a gap that you're talking about. That's a huge issue. I'll see people in wheelchairs coming down the road on Graham, coming up from 256. And that's one of those areas that we talk about. The other area we talk about is, the parcel in front of the cemetery, in front of the Ohio Department of Ag, all those areas where we don't have it. You're right. As we get development, and it's important that we talk about that and make sure that gets done at that time. So.
Okay, thank you. So just for clarification, I'm not talking about any new developments. I'm talking about existing developments. And one example is Retton Road, and those homes have been there, I don't know how long, but that is one specific example. And I think that there's others. Thank you.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to mention about that too, and we'll go through this when we talk about Wagner Road improvements in the future. Unfortunately, in some areas, and I don't think it's the case too much in Reynoldsburg, but in some areas you may not have sufficient public right of way to put a sidewalk in. So then it comes to talking to property owners, trying to negotiate them to either donate it or to provide it, for a small monetary donation by the city. But I've been in cases where somebody just is adamant and doesn't want to do that, and then you have this missing gap that's there. And if you don't have the means to put it there, it's tough. And I understand what you're saying, but some of those cases may be where there's just not right away that the city ever acquired back in the day, and unless we negotiate it with the property owners, and it kind of is what it is for the time being.
All right, thank you, Director Dorman. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember Cotner.
Thank you. Again, I want to make sure people are clear and residents are clear. This is going to be a cost to them that they will have to pay, not the city paying. What approximate, single family, they've got to fix a couple. It's not just, one crack, you don't crack seal it. You're fixing the whole section of that concrete there. What would they expect to pay? What's an average home going to look at like they're going to have billed for this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you're right. I mean, some properties may not have any sidewalks that need replaced, and some may, if you're on a corner lot, you're obviously going to have more than anyone else would. Typically, a panel can range anywhere from $125 to $175. If it's in the middle of a driveway, it's a little thicker because as the cars drive over it, we pour those, 6 inches as opposed to 4 inches if it's a regular sidewalk. But that's typically the going rate, the higher rate being something that's more along the driveway line. So I think, when I looked at the rough scenario, I don't think anyone had more of I don't think it was higher than maybe $800. And that was probably for maybe 5 or 6 panels. And that's why we have the option of deferring it to the tax bill too. So if people don't have the means, then it can be assessed the property tax bill the following year. Some people though, in my past in doing this in other communities, you get probably about a 80 to 85% rate where people typically just will pay it directly.
Yeah, but we've never had a year where people have lost jobs and dealt with a pandemic and are watching every penny that they're dealing with. So this will not be a popular program, and I think making sure people understand what to expect is very important. This isn't creating new sidewalks. This isn't filling the gaps of other places. This is putting the burden to the homeowner to get your sidewalks fixed and pay it out one way or the other. So just making sure we all understand.
And that's a good point. So I know some communities do offer some assistance with that if residents want to more, but I hate to say it's a first come, first serve. It's a pot of money that's there. If residents have a need, they can apply for those fundings, and that's something that we can gladly talk about with council if they'd want to entertain something like that. Now, I will say too, if it's a sidewalk panel that's a result of city work, like where we had a water shutoff valve or some other thing, luckily we don't have a lot of street trees, so no, not a lot of the root issues are caused by on the city's behalf, but any of the other ones we will pay for if it's caused by work that we needed to do.
And Mr. Dorman, that's another great lead in as well. Some of those issues where the trees are doing the damage, just repaving that sidewalk isn't necessarily going to fix it. Are residents going to be expected to remove trees in this kind of scenario as well?
There's nothing that requires them to. We will look at other options that are cheaper though in those areas, such as it's called slab jacking and angle grinding. So if the sidewalk's heaved a little bit, and you're right, in my past experience, you would spend all this money and remove a sidewalk panel, and 3 years later the panel's popped again. The tree's going to continue to get, the tree's going to stay there. You're going to continue to have issues, but so there are considerably cheaper methods when we run across those issues. If the tolerance is there, that we can just either shave the panel a little bit, or what they call slab jacking, which is where you just pump it. Basically, you either pump the panel that's lower adjacent to it to match the grade.
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor Begany.
I just wanted to add in, Councilman Cotner, just as we're trying to be more proactive, anytime that new development comes in, Director Dorman is an arborist. We actually have 2 of them on staff with the city, one in Parks and Mr. Dorman himself. And one of the things that we've been working on when developments come in is anything that's there, their landscape and their tree plans that they have would be, and again, I'm not the expert, but basically instead of their roots only going shallow and out like what we've seen that causes some of the issues that you mentioned, these roots for these trees that we're recommending that are being put in will actually go deeper. And if I didn't use the correct terminology, Director Dorman, I apologize. I am just a novice in this world.
No, that's correct. There are trees that more deciduous trees that have more of a predominant surface root area. Honey locust can do that. Elms do that. Zelkovas. yeah, we're looking at right, they call it right tree, right place. You know, you make sure you put the right tree in the right area based on what's around it.
Great. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add to the conversation? Yep.
Can I say
Yes,
something?
Councilmember Baker.
Is it possible to look in to see if we could create a program for those who, you know, don't have the means to fix up their sidewalks? Or did you mention
Yeah,
that and I totally spaced out?
I'd be willing to look at what other cities are doing and the criteria and share that with council. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. Item number 7, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMHT pertaining to inspection services for the 2021 street improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman.
Yes, so this is EMHC is the city engineer. This proposal is just to do the inspection work and monitor these contracts. They basically are out there in the field. They provide a field representative that has kind of acts as a liaison between the residents and the contractor, and then also reviews all the quantities at the end of every business day. So they are out there doing all the back checking on these projects for us.
I should note that Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Are there any questions or comments from the committee regarding this legislation?
So
Any?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question here. So Director Dorman, so this is a inspection services that you do on a regular basis, right? And if you know these things in advance that this will be coming up, why we are coming for a single read emergency for this particular thing, or this is something different?
Well, that's a good question. So it is not, we don't know what the cost is. The cost is based on once they review the bid tabs and the numbers that the contractor provides us, then they actually provide us a proposal after that for the amount. So I could always throw out a number in there. It'd be a pretty large number just to avoid things like this. But no, their proposal is based on the actual time they're going to spend on the project based on what the contractor provides. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Thank you. Are there any?
I understand that your thought in it, that does make sense, but unfortunately, I can't do that.
Any other questions for Director Dorman from council? Okay. I'm moving for this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. Item number 8, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMHT pertaining to inspection services for the 2021 sidewalk improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Anything else, Director Dorman, you would like to add?
No, it's pretty much exactly the same as my previous comment.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? Any from council? Okay, I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. Item number 9, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Complete General Construction pertaining to the Main Street Improvement Project, Davidson Drive to Jackson Street, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Director Dorman. Director Dorman, are you there?
I'm sorry, there we go. I was muted. Yes, this is the OPWC grant, Main Street Improvements Phase 1, which was from Davidson Drive to Jackson Street. It includes the widening of the pedestrian sidewalks through historic Reynoldsburg, some street enhancements, including new street trees, tree wells, and some benches, new lighting, a new traffic signal at Lancaster in Maine, where the old string pole one will be removed. And trying to think what else. That's pretty much it, I think. As you probably experienced, there's a lot of work on Main Street already. ODOT has started their repaving project, and Columbia Gas is out there. They're moving their facilities right now in preparation for this project. So Complete General was a low bid on this project. And once again, this would be for the construction. And then later you'll be seeing an ordinance for the inspection portion.
Thank you, Director Dorman. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? Any comments from council?
I have a comment.
Yes, Councilmember Baker.
Thank you. Director Dorman, the crossing light that's right there, like literally across the street from Tippy Taco and Prost right there, where you have to have the flag to walk across. Is there anything in the future, since we're doing that stretch, to replace that, to have something that's more visible to traffic? Because like, for example, the one that's on Livingston near the high school, something where drivers can really see the lights. Because I've seen it where people push that button and cars are just going through, and I'd rather either they don't care or they just don't see it because it's not really that visible.
Yeah, I think the improvements we're doing along there will be really helpful for that. I think we're doing what they call an island right there at by Vic's Pizza. You know, we had the issue with the car going straight down through there and running into Prost. What I see, a couple months ago, we had a tractor trailer trying to make they were heading eastbound and tried to turn there to go up to 256 and got stuck. So we're putting an island there. That'll prohibit people from doing those kind of illegal turns there. That's going to be a huge benefit. The other thing is we're widening the sidewalks. So we go about 4 feet wider on the sidewalks through that area. And by doing that, that sign that you're talking about is going to get pushed out further toward the street. Well, for one thing, traffic should slow down because the street's going to be narrower. And the second thing is that sign is going to be pushed out even further because of us widening the sidewalks. I think we might have even talked about having it more suspended over the intersection.
Yeah, that's what I
I'll have to see where we ended up with that, only because with the tractor trailers and things that are driving down there. I think, you know, I'll have to see where that ended up. I can't recall off the top of my head right now, but that's something I can definitely look into. But I think the improvements we're doing there it's definitely going to do some traffic calming through there. And I think we'll see some definite improvements there.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the one that's on Livingston near the high school, because it suspends over Livingston.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments? I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read measures. Item number 10, An ordinance to establish the Reynoldsburg Adopt a Road program. Councilmember Baker, would you like to make any comments regarding this legislation?
Yes, and I'll be brief because I understand we got a lot more to do. But I came up with this idea because every time I see it on Facebook, people are going out, picking up trash and stuff along our roadways to try to help make Reynoldsburg look beautiful. And I thought this would be a great program to aid into that. And so I was starting to looking at different areas, different municipalities who offer this program. And so I kind of nitpicked some of the stuff from it and made up this ordinance with the help of Attorney Shook. And so I think this would be a neat opportunity for the city of Reynoldsburg to have a program like this. It would also increase participation among cleaning up litter, trash along the streetways in our city to help make our city look beautiful. So that's the reason why I brought this legislation. I talked with Councilman Paccarell, and he's all for this legislation, and he wants to partner with me doing this.
Thank you. Attorney Shook, do you have anything more to add?
Just briefly, I mean, so we already have a lot of groups that are volunteering in the city. We've heard about Blocking the Berg, and Pastor Diani and his group over at the Vineyard Church are very helpful around the city as well. And what this really does is it gives those groups an opportunity to continue volunteering with the city, but to be recognized for the service that they are providing. We do have an application that I drafted and submitted along with the council packet, as well as a proposed waiver that any participant would have to sign to protect the city from any potential liability. But this is a program that is designed to honor and recognize those groups.
Thank you.
And also for I'm sorry, and also for groups who will like to participate in this program. I had talked to Director Dorman and the street department about creating signs like you typically see in Adopt a Road programs that have those organizations advertise to the public that they're helping keep Reynoldsburg beautiful.
Also, Chairman Strickland.
Yes, Councilmember Pickering.
So, yeah, definitely this is very, very important. Like we have seen the last the Saturday, I think not this one, I think earlier Saturday, we were cleaning down there in the Livingston Avenue. I think when we have this, not if, but when we have this program, I think that will be a group adapting certain road and make those area clean, because there's tons and tons and tons of trash around lying in the places. So I think this will address some of that, may not be all, but some of those problems and make our city beautiful.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from council? All right, thank you. I move we forward this ordinance to council for a first read. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Item number 11, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Tool and Associations for professional plan review and inspection services and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman is requesting a single read emergency on this legislation. Director Dorman, would you like to speak regarding this legislation?
Yes, so this is our city CBO, actually is our CBO and our floodplain administrator. He does all of our commercial plan review and our inspections, electrical inspections, and the commercial inspections. As you guys are aware, last year we had to move some money around and appropriate some more funding because it was a good thing. We had so much development going on that we ran out of money in our budget for this. So we have adjusted the contract this year to reflect the current amounts, the amount that we were at last year. At the end of last year, I think it was around $80-some thousand. the contract should be attached. And once again, it was, this contract is in order to keep, things moving with them, as we got so much projects, anticipated and moving forward. He's a vital resource to the city. So.
Thank you, Director Dorman.
Chair
Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation?
Chair Strickland, I just want to make sure council did receive the email earlier. The wrong contract was attached to the packet. So, thank you.
Oh, yes, we did receive the email late in the day. Why, I understand with some of the others that are single reads and brought up the same night. Why couldn't this one have been done any sooner?
Well, and I would prefer not to do this as a single read. We'd been requested by the company, the CBO. They basically sent an email to me explaining that their liability company have a rate increase, and they need to provide a signed contract with the city prior to that rate increase, which is actually 4/15 of 21.
So it's because they didn't get something to us that we bring it up and pass it as a single read?
Well, we're trying to accommodate them and not, they basically said they're going to have an increase and asked if we could pass it as that. They've been doing this. Currently, we have a contract with them. It's, once again, most of this is just in and out fees. If someone pays for a permit, it gets put back to our CBO. There are a few of these fees that are not like that, but no, yes, you're right. It's one of those things where they've asked it, and we're trying to, since we worked with them for so long, we're trying to be accommodating. And once again, it's the contract that we're working on right now that we're already engaged with.
So Attorney Shook, there's nothing that we can do to help them to get some kind of extension on an existing agreement that would help them without having to introduce something that we just got hours ago and pass it?
And that's between them and a third party. We can't, there's nothing that we could do to be able to get them an extension with whatever third party they're working with. We are operating under a contract that we signed with them last year that provides for an hourly rate that we pay to Bill Tool and Associates. And I think we've continued to operate under that contract through this year. Beyond that, I don't know much more than what Mr. Dorman indicated.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd
Yes,
like to
Councilmember Baker.
make a comment because there's a lot of new members here on council. A few years ago, council passed, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was something that we had literally got the day of council. It was to the point where I hadn't even read it yet, and I was asking to hold off some time for us to get time to look at it, but council continued to go on, and I was lucky to read through the packet. So getting something like this isn't new to council. In the past, council has passed something, one emergency reading that we just got. So I was able to read through the correct packet and everything. So I see no problem with it. I just for, future references, just to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, so we won't come across this. But council have done this in the past.
Yeah, like I said, I think when we look at that charter review, my past experience was, there was other mechanisms for this that, at 3 readings and a 30-day referendum is for lots of work that I do in the engineering side, the street work. It's sometimes almost impossible. But I can assure you that the one good thing about this contract is we've been using them for years. The contract is identical to every one we've had in the past. They haven't changed any of their rates. The only thing that's different in there is we reflected the price of the services provided last year in there. So we changed the amount, like I said, to reflect what we actually encumbered and spent last year.
And I think the emergency language on many issues is a useful tool. I don't have any problem, Mr. Dorman, with council utilizing that and getting the mayor's signature and moving forward. I think that makes a lot of sense. But years ago, council met every Monday, and there would be a committee meeting, there would be a council meeting. And when it changed, there was a strong consensus that items wouldn't be introduced and passed the same night. And that's the problem with this. Not even the one reading, but the one introduction, passage, all in one time frame. That's the part that, the community needs to at least know. I know that not all community members pay attention, and it's okay. I know that's few would, if any, would say, hey, I have a problem with this contract. So that's not and again, I'm implying nothing wrong, but it's just that concept that, it was every Monday we met, we changed that. And when we did, it was a very, very strong agreement that unless it was a true sky is falling emergency, we would avoid the introduction and passage in the same evening. And that's the problem that, I feel about it is all not even the emergency, not even a one read emergency, just that it's because again, it's useful. And I know that things have to happen quickly with contracts. So not trying to be problematic. It's just that introduction there.
I 100% agree with you, Ms. Councilmember Cotner. And I think one thing too that I've noticed is sometimes contracts went before you and sometimes they didn't. So we're trying to be as transparent. And I would love to say I could give you 3 reads on this, but I want to also make sure that we're putting it for you and getting everything signed. So I appreciate what you're saying and agree with that.
I don't think 3 reads are necessary. We have in our charter the language for emergencies, and I think that's a useful and responsible tool to use. No problem.
For members of council, we'll do as best a job as we can to kind of continue to curtail that as best as possible. This night is obviously a little bit different because of the amount of street work that's involved. But to your point, Councilman Cotner, I agree. We do need to do as good a job as we can to, especially the one read emergencies with the limited time. So we'll do what we can.
All right, thank you. I move we forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. As there is no further business for the Public Service and Transportation Committee, I return this meeting to you, President Jenkins. Thank you.
Thank you. Next report will be our Finance and Administration Committee, Councilmember Savati.
Thank you, President Jenkins. This is the Finance and Administration Committee meeting for April 12th, 2021. Members in attendance are Councilmember Baker, Councilmember Strickland, myself, and President Jenkins. The first ordinance on the agenda for tonight is an ordinance to transfer funds for the purchase of real properties to be used by the city of Reynoldsburg and declaring an emergency. I feel like I've been set up by this next line, but the mayor is requesting a single read emergency for this legislation. I'm not sure who's going to comment on this, either the mayor maybe or.
Yeah, I'll start off, Councilman Salvati, members of council, President Jenkins. As you know, a few weeks ago, the council met and was given an executive session, the potential for the city of Reynoldsburg to purchase different pieces of property. Now we bring before you that final session, and the first piece of legislation that you're referring to is to allocate and move the funds to an appropriate level. I just want to kind of give you a little bit of a background. Late last week, as I'm kind of scrolling through and keeping an eye on what's going on, I got a notification that the city of Hilliard is going to be losing their 3rd largest employer. It's BMW Financial Services. It's approximately 600 jobs. It is one of the biggest nightmares that I think that the city auditor and I share is what happens if something similar to this happens in our community, if the limited were to. And we experienced a little of that last year with some of the layoffs at L Brands. So it's going to be very difficult because of the lack of usable space that we have in the city of Reynoldsburg for major large scale employers. But what we do have the opportunity to do is continue to build upon what Reynoldsburg is strongest known for, which is our small businesses. Small businesses can be anywhere from 50 to 100 employees, sometimes maybe even give it a little bit more than that. and the opportunity for us to purchase these two pieces of property in question, the PNC Bank as well as the Happy Dragon, are going to be able to help set up the stage for some good small business and medium-sized business into the city of Reynoldsburg. We know that we have a number of different types of businesses here in Reynoldsburg. What we are looking to do with this is potentially try and diversify our business portfolio, where we have different styles of jobs that maybe have not been as prevalent in the city of Reynoldsburg in the past. Looking for something a little bit different in each site. Some of it could be, again, a mix of restaurant and retail. It can be additional office space, entrepreneurial space, or what they call incubator space, things of that nature. But a lot of different options to provide not only the jobs to the community, but also certain amenities, especially in our Old Town area, that fit within what we are looking to do with that version to kind of make it more pedestrian friendly, more boutique related in shopping. And so the process began a few weeks ago, and we are bringing it before you tonight with my strong encouragement for passage. So that way we can move and continue to control a little bit of our own destiny. So that in case the worst case scenario happens of something of the limited, we do as best a job as we can to bring in other businesses to help compensate, and in the meantime, continue to grow our economy throughout the entire city of Reynoldsburg. With that, I will open up to any questions to the first particular one. I don't know if the auditor would like to talk about the details of the transference of funds before we get to the actual pieces of property and the following two pieces of legislation.
So yeah, are there any more non-council comments on this? Auditor maybe, or?
Has everyone read it? It's pretty straightforward. It's transferring money from the unencumbered general fund into the 410 fund.
Yeah, the good thing about this single read emergency is that we've been talking about these properties for like almost a month now, if not longer. But with that, are there any questions or comments from my committee?
There's one point, Chairman Salvati, that I'd like to make, and
please,
President Jenkins, that in the I talked to City Attorney Shook about this today. There's a portion in there that states closing costs and contingency will also be paid, and we've pretty much nailed down that the amount of money that's on this legislation is the amount that's going to be used, and there'll be nothing else used for these buildings.
Okay. That sounds good. Again, any comments? I'll expand it out to anybody from council. Have any comments or questions for the auditor or the mayor? Councilman Cotner, you're on mute. Okay,
yeah, sorry, just had to get the hand going from the hand up to the mute button. I mean, now seems as good a time as any. Well, since there's 3 points altogether, we might as well just talk on them now, and instead of separating everything out. So I still have a lot of concerns about this. I've brought them up before. I asked about the appraisal and what those appraisal rates were. So do we know, again, the fact that we're trying to purchase this and hold it for someone as a landowner, it just still seems, again, problematic in a lot of ways. But the pricing on these, did anyone else see the appraisals? Or I don't know if Mr. Boucher shared those.
They were available to everyone. We were going to add them to the agenda today, but after speaking with Clerk of Council Prasher, because of the size of them, I believe each one are in excess of 80 pages, adding them to the agenda is a little bit difficult, but they're available at any point in time for a separate mailing to members of the community, things of that nature. And I do know that council members had reached out to myself and Director Boucher asking some general questions about things in the past, but I can answer any other questions that are available for him.
And to add to that, I'm sorry, Councilmember Cotner, that thank you. Other members of some of the other members of council, as you had reached out to me via email, some of the other ones came into the office, and we sort of went over some of those finances and some of those numbers and sort of the idea of the end goal and and what that product and why we were doing that. A lot of the same questions and comments that you had made to me. So there's been some other communications that have been had as well.
Right. And we're holding for one specific developer. I mean, we have I think you've identified a preferred developer. Is that,
Yes.
is that the right term?
Yeah, Councilman Connor, one of the concerns that the auditor brought to our attention is to try and lock up some sort of a development deal as early in the process as possible. So that way it would reduce as much risk to the city as possible. That was one of his concerns, because obviously we want to be made whole with this particular arrangement. So one of the developers that we had been working with on other different pieces of property within the city of Reynoldsburg had expressed interest in partnering with us at that point in time. But again, it was more or less to help speed the process along more so than anything else.
And so that, you mentioned something in there that I've got in my notes too about being made whole. Are we going to include, it's not in this language, but are we going to include language that we guarantee that the city is made whole? I know there was talk of, we're buying at a certain price. Are we sure that we're getting every penny we pay back from these developers?
At the end of the process, when we actually sell the properties within X amount of months depending on the particular property, the goal is to be made whole, as the auditor has kind of said, to make sure that we're getting back all of the money for it. Some of it could also be a longer term goal of investment. How many jobs are going to be created for it? What is the difference in property value? Things of that nature that'll help add to the tax base all the way around. But yes, the goal is to be made whole. So if we're spending $2.6 million, 2,625,000 and change, yeah, that is our goal, to get that money back. So that way, basically, it is a pass through between this time and when we sell the properties.
Well, I think it needs to be more than a goal. I think it needs to be a fact. I mean, if we are saying that we're purchasing these properties for $1 million corporations that, multi-million-dollar corporations, that they just can't somehow move as quickly as city government can, they should guarantee that we're made whole.
And that is our goal. But at the same time, depending on the deal, if a developer were to come in and offer a job, something that would bring in, say, 100 jobs with a $15 to $20 million payroll, but they wanted to pay less for the particular property at the outset, then at that point in time, is it worth being able to bring and increase the tax revenue to the city from the income taxes alone if there is a slight loss for that? That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is to, again, be made whole, but I'm not going to guarantee that is going to be the case, because I don't believe we should be forfeiting potential job growth on the offset for this.
And what other expenses? So again, we're going to hope to sell these within a certain amount of months, and now it sounds like we're not positive of exactly who's going to be there. But what are the buildings going to stay there? And I think the talk had been that these buildings are coming down. Is that cost being passed on to developers?
No, as of right now, the buildings, if they're going to be demolished, they're going to be demolished at the cost of the developers. That's going to be something that they will take care of. That's not something that the auditor has been very firm in that's their responsibility. These properties will remain vacant. We have made arrangements to make sure that they are included in any potential insurance policies and things of that nature that Director Boucher can speak on. The rest of it is just basic maintenance of the facilities, almost as if it was a vacant business throughout the rest of the city. The goal, again, is to have these things off our books within 1 year. However, again, the idea is that it would be at least that, but a potential for maybe more, but most likely it's going to be less than that. That's why we work with a preferred developer, because that way they can already start working and quote unquote shopping it around to the potential of what could be there.
Thank you, Mayor. And in fact, actually, that preferred developer has already been working in conjunction with my office to secure those deals already, ahead of time. Obviously, it takes us purchasing the properties to continue that moving forward. One of your comments, Councilmember Cotner, was how does it protect our assets if it's vacant? Certainly, we've been working with Director Bowler, Human Resources, about our insurance, so we're working through that as well. We certainly don't want to be a landlord. So the current tenant there at the Happy Dragon, in fact, City Attorney Shook can talk on this as well. We made an arrangement for them for our money to be able to be put into an escrow account at our closing, and then when they are closed, when the product is sold off and they have time to move their equipment out of the building and they are ready to drop off the keys for their closing, that's when money will exchange hands for them. And then that way the building is vacated. The current PNC has been vacated for a month now, and so it sits there vacant. If we were not to purchase that, it certainly would go onto the market immediately. That was made very clear to myself early on in the process. The city had an opportunity. We did not have the funds at that time, but we were able to negotiate with the Hadlers of a first right of refusal. And that was about 3 years ago when we made that. So this is our first right of refusal for the city to be able to do that. It certainly helps us knowing that we do own the majority of the land that surrounds this particular site, with the understanding that really we want something that's going to match and I think bring in great development next to our $30 million investment right beside it. So I think for us in that standpoint, I think working with a preferred developer, buying us a little bit of extra time and making sure that we don't get the first thing that lands on the doorstep, but we're actually making the smart decisions, the sustainable decisions, and making sure that we get the best businesses in the city, which we really have never been able to do in the past.
And so going back to Happy Dragon, then you said this money is going into escrow. They're going to continue operating for a length of time? Or as soon as this goes through, they are closing their doors right away?
Yeah, so it'll be 45 days after our close that they have to vacate outside of the premise, meaning that if there's leftover product that's currently there, they have 45 days to sell everything off and 45 days to move everything out. This was a condition that the current owner had asked for. In May, he actually is traveling across seas into Asia for a while for a holiday and a family trip. He would like a little bit of extra time when he does come back to be able to get everything out. And of course, we do not want to own the building while there is still an active tenant there. That is an insurance nightmare, and that's something that the city does not want to get involved with.
And the preferred developer, is, you said it was Trivium. It's the same company that's been buying up the old rentals of the Kirks, the Summer Rays. And so they own these old Summer Ray Kirk rentals all around town. And that's who's going to be taking this project on.
Yes, and I don't want that to be his categorization. Excuse me.
I mean, he owns a lot of them. There's a lot that he bought of the Kirk properties.
Yeah, he did, and a lot of those happen to be right on Main Street. And the idea of that is that is a prime area for redevelopment, and so he was thinking ahead of time. Those all were able to be bought up in a fairly cheap manner, and then he was able to extend a contract to Lifehouse to be able to keep those in. So he was able to do that. Plus, he's added about $100,000 just in the last 3 weeks on upgrading those and getting rid of a lot of the code violations that were currently on to the properties. But Trivium Development isn't known for that. They are known for boutique type developments exactly like this. They have ties to Ohio State, the Veterans Affairs, Ohio Health, and various other medical providers. So they definitely do a lot in the medical sector, but as well as commercial retail as well. He is known for a lot of the things that are in Cleveland Avenue at North Star in Westerville. He's the one that built the Brew Burger local cantina and the hotel adjacent. So his portfolio is pretty wide, and he does a lot of work here in Central Ohio. So the understanding is he's bought property. He's somebody that can absolutely be trusted, and somebody that we've been grooming now for about a year. Going through this process. And when these opportunities came, we could think of nobody better in order to establish and regain our investment back faster than working with somebody that's already been, establishing a relationship and establishing a foothold in the community that really wants to see Reynoldsburg just taken to the next level.
And how many other developers walked away from Happy Dragon that were, I mean, you shared with me literally at the table, that were very good developers that walked away for various reasons.
Absolutely. And I think I talked about that in pretty good detail last time. There were a total of 3 legitimate developers. I touched on the one wanted to only build affordable housing for the entire development. It would not be commercial. It was something that they did not want to do. And then the other one could not negotiate a price even as low as what we have negotiated with Jackson currently. So they walked away from that. And the other one basically decided that because of COVID, they were not going to take a shot on it with an understanding of not knowing where the market was going to go and not knowing if the zoning code was going to get passed and how many hoops they were going to have to jump through to even get a development together. So I think there were a lot of unknowns, and now a lot of those have been cleared up, and we feel that we've met the right individual and the right partner moving forward.
And if this moves forward, then is there works that combines our city-owned parking lot into this parcel?
There
and
is, yes.
Make deals there?
There is, yes.
Okay.
And it's pretty much the established route that we were taking with a few other developers that we had worked with as well. Bringing the building up front along Main Street, putting additional parking in the back. Currently, there's a total of 16 total spots that we currently have in our parking lot there. The current concept that's being proposed has a total of 52 total parking spaces that will be open to the public. So actually a large increase of public parking for the community.
Again, that's dependent on who we get and what the product looks like too. Okay, so I guess then my only other questions probably lie to Attorney Shook and making sure, this has moved very quickly. We're seeing contracts, and we were, again, like it's been shared, so we were told some things in executive session, and then we see appraisals that were already done. Has the city followed all the steps? Are there any missing pieces that still should be addressed prior to any of this? If it's even the right decision, that's not the point, but just legally and procedurally, have we checked the boxes that are necessary and required?
Yeah, so first and foremost, make sure I'm not muted here. The city's purchase has to be for a public purpose, and redevelopment is generally regarded as a public purpose. We cannot buy property for anything more than fair market value, which is why it was so essential to have appraisals done on these properties. For our own liability protection, we do have to have an environmental assessment completed. At the very least, a phase 1. If there's a recommendation for a phase 2, we would have to have that completed as well. That protects the city, because if we're going to be a prior owner in the chain of title on this property, we could be subject to CERCLA liability later on down the line. And that protects us from that kind of liability. In addition, obviously, we wanted to make sure that our insurance coverage would be able to provide for us for these properties, and we have worked that with Sandra Bowler. So I think Mr. Bauscher can probably answer better the question of where we're at with the environmental assessments, but that's obviously a very important component of a city purchasing a property.
Yeah, good point, City Attorney Shook. So as we had talked about, there was that potential of a third property. The reason why we've held off on there, because we're still in negotiations on that property, and that's probably the one that we worried the most about for environmental concerns. So that's why that one's not on the agenda tonight, and they're probably later in the next month or two. However, for the two, we actually completed an environmental study of the Happy Dragon and our parking lot space in 2019. That parcel really just got re-upped and recertified for 2021. That's been complete and done, and I have a copy of that I'd be more than happy to share. It's also a very long document. The PNC one is almost complete. We should have a copy back sometime this week or early next. The reason why we're hold off is that there's a questionnaire that's out there for the Hadler companies that they have to give back. A lot of it is basically taking a look at older data. Was this ever anything before a bank? No. So a lot of these are just check the box type questions for them, but they also have to do their due diligence, and they want to make sure that it's as accurate as possible and they're not giving the city false information. This, obviously a liability on their part. So we're waiting on them to be able to give that back to us. Once they do, that completes the packet for EMH&T, who's conducted that for us, and that would be cleared as well. So I see no issues coming back from the two parcels that are on the agenda this evening.
Director Bauscher, I'd like to know what's the path for us to get our money back?
Yeah,
for the new developer, the preferred developer, to finish what he needs to do for him to write us our check.
Yeah, perfect. So the next steps after this, after we would purchase said properties, we would continue working, city attorney, myself, their attorney and the developer working on a developer's agreement. That then would come up with a contingent timeline. And if there are any additional asks outside of the purchase price that we would like to throw in there, like ensuring that all 54 spots behind the building is for public parking, we can add those conditions in there. That's part of the idea of the city being able to control the destiny for new development moving into the city. So once that's complete, they'll continue moving forward. They had 3 successful meetings, or they've had 1. They'll have 2 more later this week for potential tenants. We know that there's already a medical provider that's extremely interested and one that has already given a verbal commitment. So the idea being, we think as it stands, based on the conversations and some of the documents already sort of circulated on the private side, that the Happy Dragon will come down first and foremost. The PNC is a much larger project that'll take a little bit longer, but we both hope that both of those would be ready for construction this time next year. We think that the Happy Dragon, maybe even late summer of this year. And I'm not trying to jump the gun here, but just realistically, based on the conversations, knowing a lot of the players that are involved, I feel like that's actually a pretty reasonable timeline.
So for him to start construction, he needs to own the building, is that correct? Or the land?
That is correct. Yeah, he's got to purchase those from us to start construction. However, he's already deal making now and understanding that it's coming together. And then certainly he can't do anything until we own the buildings. And certainly there's no developer's agreement unless there is a developer and an agreement based on us owning the property. Attorney Shook has already seen sort of a rough draft of that, sort of the boilerplate version, and there's a lot that we still have to work on to get that to where we needed to get to on that agreement.
And one additional thing with that is, let us just say that another developer that knows that this is potentially going on, that's following, real estate in Reynoldsburg, and they decide that they have a user that is just an out of this world, everything that we would possibly want for that particular location. There is an opportunity for this, basically for the current developer that we're working with, Trivium, that they would actually step aside if need be. And then we could work with this other one. So it's not a guarantee thing. We just think that Trivium is much further along in the process with a lot of things, but there is a possibility if somebody comes in. That's what's actually unique about this arrangement, is that we are the ones that are controlling that particular part of our destiny. So we do not have to necessarily wait for others to make the move, that if they come and choose to do this, then we can listen to that best offer.
And
are there benchmarks then for them to meet that they have to do in their process to be able to buy the property?
I'm sorry, you broke up, Auditor Sisak. I couldn't hear you.
Are there, for the developer, are there benchmarks that the developer is going to have to make and meet with his own banking? Or what's the process the developer has to do to be able to pay the city of Reynoldsburg back?
Yeah, so what they do is, it's not like it'll be over a period of time or something. Basically, what they'll do is we'll have a developer's agreement, and they will continue to work through the process, securing the leases and the deal, pulling together all the financing. And in fact, it's a great question, because actually, I believe somebody on Facebook also asked the exact same question. I know I talked about it last time. Development deals are very lengthy. They take a long time to pull together. Somebody doesn't just back up with a truck and jump off money and say, well, we're going to have BMW come out there. I know the mayor had mentioned that. It's actually a work in process for 2 years. Now that's 600 jobs. So that's a lot bigger than what we're talking about. And it just now broke news that they're leaving. And in fact, they mentioned in the article that they had an opportunity of going to 3 different locations. I, however, have some information that knows that they've actually already selected and already have inked a deal on one of those. And so that's how long things like this take. And so with the city being able to be in a position that we currently are, knowing where the current locations of these are already in existence, knowing that we had first right of refusal, and we know what it would have been. It could have been anything. It probably would have been a Kimba Bank, to be honest, and it would have stayed the same. And that's probably great for some people, but I think that they would be continuing to do the same thing, expecting different results. And for the Happy Dragon, we know that it would have continued being that because they made it very clear to us that if a deal was not struck and done, that they would be basically leasing it out to cousins to continue operating for the entirety of their life wanting to create that, because Jack was done and he was ready to retire. So that being said, getting back to Auditor Sisek, your question, how does the deal get done? Well, it's communicating with the leaseholders, the individuals that are bringing in, the restaurant groups, the medical groups, the incubator groups like Cohatch or COPC, working out deals. And at that point, it becomes a math problem. Understanding of, well, we have a delta of $2 million. Now I've got to work backwards. I've got to understand of how much per square footage can I get for the total building? How much of the building can I put on it? How much are they willing to pay per square foot? And can I meet my delta to make sure that I can purchase the property? It gets very, very technical. And I know you have a finance background, so certainly I know you're following. So for that, it's very complicated, and it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy to bring those together. And that's just the private side. Also working with us on the public side is he's got to get approvals. He's got to go through zoning. He's got to go through building before he can even break ground. Those all things also take time. If somebody owns a building, because of the way that these projects are, it could be almost a year, potentially a year and a half. And that is a ton of taxes and a ton of carrying time and a lot of time on the loan. So what these gentlemen do, just like Tim is going to do, is he'll take out a big loan. At commercial loans, you can only get up to 65, sometimes 70%, which means that there's an additional 30 to 35% that has to be made up. That comes back with investors. Luckily, Tim works a lot here in the area and he has a lot of different investors, but it also is pulling those types of individuals in. Doctors, lawyers, individuals that have additional capital that they're putting in. And instead of playing the stock market, now they're putting it into the development game. And so it brings it together. I know I'm over talking and there's a lot to it, but that's how complicated it is, which is why it's important for us to be able to set that tone, allow him to be able to give him time to be able to get the best product at the end. With that being said, I think you all have now got a degree in real estate development.
We all want the best product in the city of Reynoldsburg, but going back to your comment about backing up a truck and dropping off money, that's what the administration is asking council for me to write a check for. So we have to make sure that the city is made whole. If we were going to borrow money, we would have to have a developer's agreement because we have a debt policy. The city has a strong financial position, and it's been that way because we do ask these questions, and we have to. We have got to protect the taxpayer's dollar.
I totally agree with you. And if we weren't in a position to be able to do that, then I don't think that we would be here tonight. But we are in a different position than we were 3-4 years ago. And I think at this point, I think it's a relatively low risk with a high yield for us to be able to make vast improvements into the city. And it's thanks to city council and you, city auditor and others, and a passing of the tax bill in 2017 that we do have the additional revenue that we didn't have then to be able to make these types of improvements. So kudos to everyone on the line.
Okay.
I get very worried about this. The city's got a double A2 credit rating. The average is a double A3. If we draw on our reserves and our capital fund, we have to be very careful. And you know, there's nobody that watches the money more than me and the mayor in this city. We're doing it every day. And to see anything get away from us it would be irresponsible not to have all the numbers and all the factors to do the equations ahead of time.
Hey, Andrew.
Councilmember Baker.
I have a question, Andrew. You mentioned, because this, like you said, this isn't the first time council have heard of this. You mentioned that the city in the past have done something like this before. Well, we acquired land like the East Side Brewing. We own that land. Or like the parking lot, the Memorial Plaza parking lot, which the city bought and owned that land, which the businesses in Old Town East have benefited from because we did that. So this isn't really nothing new to us. Am I correct or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. Certainly, I made mention of it, and you did as well. Eastside Brewing Company, founder of Buckeye Lake Brewery, He said that he was looking for a second location. So we reached out to him in 2018, and that was sort of a dark horse site. We were actually going to demo that site, and now it's a thriving business. So it's a great win for the city. And it's a great story. We were able to sell that for $100,000, and now it's a great brewery. And so for the parking lot, same thing. We were able to buy it, and now it's not just a vacant piece of ground in our downtown. It's actually being utilized, and that was the best use that you could because of the covenants that were in the deed for the restrictions there on that site. And we're not the only community that's done this. I think I mentioned last time that the city of Dublin just purchased 5 brand new homes right along the Scioto, and the goal of that was they were opening it up for real estate development. They have a preferred developer. They like to work with Crawford Hoying a lot. They'll probably give that off or give it to another small boutique developer that'll give them exactly what they need to continue growing Bridge Park, or at least the other side of Bridge Park. So, of course, we don't have Dublin money, but this can be our potential version of a Bridge Park along our creek banks. Everything kind of ties together. We were talking about stream bank restoration. We're talking about additional bridges. We built the community center. We're putting a lot of money and great things in downtown, but we're also still focused on the west side too, and obviously the great development from the Alliance. So all of these things start to build off of each other.
And to your point, Councilmember Baker, maybe the city has done these things before, but I will grant you this is obviously on a different scale than what had been done previously. So I do grant that there is a difference between that. But again, I do believe it is a worthwhile opportunity for the city to take advantage of at this time.
Councilman Baker, we also did the addition of Ohio Health onto the YMCA, in which we borrowed the additional $3 million. But over the course of the loan, we're going to be repaid $4 million, and we're going to still own the building as the city of Reynoldsburg. Same thing with the YMCA, that we'll own those buildings forever. So we've got maintenance agreements that go with them. You were involved with that.
Yes, and I look at it it's overall it's investing in us, is investing in the community. That was a great investment. The Eastside Brewery, well, Council, that was a great investment. Memorial Plaza, that was a great investment. So I'm looking at a great investment for the community. And I get it. You're the watchdog of the money, and I get it. You want to make sure that we're not just giving up money for the heck of it. And I wouldn't want that either. But to be able to say we are the best, we have to invest in ourselves, and it comes with making risks. And so I'm not worthwhile about making this kind of risk, but I understand it's necessary for us to continue to grow, to continue to be the city people want to move to be that, as I call it, that metropolis that other municipalities envy to be. So I that's why I asked that question.
Okay, fantastic conversation. I'll add a brief comment to that, in that there aren't a lot of properties within the Reynoldsburg city limits that I would be real thrilled to do this with. The properties, these properties being in Old Town, these properties being where they are, it's just everything I've heard for me, and I'm only speaking for me, everything I've heard and what I know of these properties, this just makes sense. Even though I know there's some risk involved. Again, that's just a comment from me personally. Obviously in the future, I'd love to see a thriving CIC, I believe is the acronym, take over more of this stuff. But for now, we have to do it as a city. So I know it's getting late, but any more comments on this? The other thing I did want to clarify for everybody here and for a Facebook comment is that I just wanted to point out that as far as buying these properties, there's been some discussion for several weeks prior to this. There was a executive session, and there was a reading last week and whatnot. So this specific ordinance is simply to transfer the money to buy these properties. You'll see in the coming ordinances that there are other ordinances for actual buying the properties, and those are on their, those aren't going to be a first or a single read emergency. So if there's no more comment, I will move to forward this ordinance to council as a single read emergency measure. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Strickland. Any last discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council as a single read emergency measure. Moving on to the second ordinance, second item, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase real property to be used by the city of Reynoldsburg and declaring an emergency. This ordinance is actually being brought back to committee to for any further discussion. I don't know if Mayor Begany or Director Boucher want to make any additional comments here. I know we've talked a lot prior to this, but
Most everything that, as Councilman Cotner kind of brought it up, everything in the last one just got all, pretty much all the conversation. But if there are any questions now or as we move forward, obviously, feel free and ask. We'll definitely keep everyone on council and the community as aware as possible of what the ultimate outcome will be of this.
all right, well, I'll open it up to any questions or comments from the committee and then council. Okay.
I'll just say one thing. I'm sorry. Thank you, Councilmember Savati.
Okay.
As we start to sort of go through these process, I think it's really important for us to be sort of transparent and open. And I think there's a lot of dealings that happen every single day that's at City Hall, and it's hard to sit there and talk about them all the time. But this being so prevalent, if this were to pass tonight, I think, we can set a tone for, sort of the first meeting in the month as this continues to move forward. I'd be more than happy to give sort of a development update on these properties as we continue to move forward, and certainly have Tim along inside here and just continue to sort of keep the updates of this is what happened, this is where we're at, these are the people that have signed on, and then obviously get more and more excited as sort of the concepts become more of detailed oriented architectural plans, and just continue to push that out to continue to get buy-in from all of you here tonight before it obviously goes to Planning Commission and beyond.
Great. I think we'd appreciate that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I move to forward this ordinance to council for emergency approval tonight. Do I have a second? Is that a second from Councilmember Baker?
Yeah, second.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
Second from Councilmember Baker. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. That ordinance will be forwarded to council for emergency approval. Third item is an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase real property to be used by the city of Reynoldsburg and declaring an emergency. This ordinance is also being brought back in case there's any further discussion. Of course, this is, again, the second of the two properties. Are there any questions on this or on the contract or? All right, seeing none. Of course, I open that up to council too, if there's any comments.
One thing I'd like to say, and
please,
kind of goes with the last one. I mean, at a minimum, I'd like to see an amendment added into this that we guarantee the city be made whole for this. Again, greatly worried of us selling this at a loss in the hopes that jobs will come and the promise that jobs will come. We referenced, I think, the BMW or the jobs leaving Hilliard, but same thing, Columbus Monthly or Business News talked about so many vacancies around Central Ohio. We've got still record vacancies of a lot of small businesses that are struggling to fill voids since the pandemic, and probably going to see a continued new way of life of how people do business. I mean, here we are in May still, or April. We're not meeting until May. We're still meeting virtually. So I think again we're adding risk to the city that is not the city's job to take on. So at a minimum, I think there should be an amendment added of guaranteeing the city's position made whole, and helping, Auditor Sisak sleep better at night to know that our bond rating and that our credit is going to stay where we need to.
Well, I will just add,
anybody in that committee has that interest, but I think that'd be another at least step.
I will add that Baker Tilly did go over all the finances. And even if the city were to sell at half the price, which is not anywhere, shape, or form our goal, it wouldn't affect our credit rating at all.
Okay, well, that's good. That I guess it doesn't affect our credit rating. Okay, Auditor Sisak, sorry.
I'm sorry. The conversation that Director Boucher is talking about is if we were borrowing money to fund this purchase. And that's not entirely accurate. We have Moody's Investor Service that rates our bonds. Our bonds from the YMCA are rated every year. And one of the big portions of it is the amount of money in our general fund. Now, if we start drawing down from our general fund, let's say it's almost $3 million here, and that's just about what we increased from last year. If we draw down on our general fund, and if we have projects in Civic Park, we have bridges you want to be built in Huber Park, and this money comes down and we draw down on this general fund, that will affect our credit rating just like it would a credit card if you had a large credit limit on it and you increased your spending on it. It's just it's a fact.
Well, again,
but I thank Councilman Cotner for considering my sleep at night, which I'm an hour past being in bed.
I completely understand both comments on that. And again, Auditor Sisak and I have spent many a time talking about city finances and what we're hopeful for this particular thing. I am not sure about the guarantee, because what I don't want to be done is put in a position where we turn down something for the long-term growth at that point. I think that limits our hands. But if that is the will of council, then obviously we will work within the framework that you provide for us.
But I definitely thank Councilmember Cotner for all this conversation, and Councilmember Baker and Auditor Sisak. It was all, and the mayor, everybody that spoke, great conversation. So I forget where I am. Am I moving to this ordinance? I guess I'm moving this ordinance. We forward this ordinance to council for its emergency approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Strickland. Any last discussion before we vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for emergency approval tonight. The fourth item on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a consultation contract with Tischler Beese Inc. to complete a feasibility report to determine the advisability of establishing impact fees in the city of Reynoldsburg and appropriating funds therefore. I know this is something that Auditor Sisak is a passion for, so take it.
Chairman Savati and President Jenkins, members of council. In December of last year, the mayor and city attorney and I began having conversations on different sources of revenue that we could bring to the city of Reynoldsburg to reduce the pressure of the general fund. Two of the things that we discussed were unpalatable, and we moved forward with different things at the beginning of the year. But I kept doing my research, and one of the things I researched was the impact fees that certain communities around us have had for almost 20 years. And the more I researched it, I found that there are many states, there's at least 18 states in the country that have impact fees that benefit our school districts. And one of the things I wanted to explore was what the benefit of these things could do for our city. So I contacted the city attorney, who told me to do it the right way and to contact, it's Tischler Bice, by the way, and figure out what an impact study would cost. Well, the cost of the entire study is, I thought it was about $35,000. And the mayor had a good idea that, we've got a lot of development already that's proposed and not a lot of space left. And what one of the principals of Tischler Bice said was, well, let's do a feasibility study, because the numbers and the things that he's looked at so far indicate that with the proposed development that we have that hasn't even broken ground yet, could impact us with about $3 million worth of impact fees. So this legislation, if you take a look at it, you'll see that the city of Beaver Creek, Dublin, Delaware, Grandview Heights, Lebanon, Marysville, Pickerington, and Sunbury already have impact fees. I haven't found any information that this stunts development in any way. That's the first part of this. I would love to continue the conversation with taking and eliminating the need for our schools to have to go back to our property owners, especially our senior citizens, to ask for more money as we develop. California and Colorado have impact fees for homes that are $30,000 to $40,000 each. And that money goes directly towards facilities, parks, and schools. So this legislation, I know it's late, simply asks for the money to begin a feasibility study to see if it's going to be worth our while. I think it is, and I ask you to pass it.
I agree with Auditor Sisak. I agree with Auditor Sisak on this. The opportunity to figure out a little bit more what it would work or how it would work in here. The city of Pataskala is actually going through this process right now. Now, Pataskala has significantly more open areas and open farmlands that they're looking to develop than Reynoldsburg does. However, given the size of, for instance, what we are calling the Eastwood development, which is across from the Department of Agriculture, is a relatively significant piece in addition to any of the other development that is out there. And so that includes longer travel distances for our street program. It includes more jurisdiction for patrol by our police department and things of that nature. So there's an opportunity there to look at it. And I think to continue to explore that is something I'm supportive of, to get an idea of what it would look like for us without necessarily investing $35,000 in something. I think $5,000, if correct of me, that's what the price is, correct? Auditor Sisak, $5,000, significantly more palatable to get an understanding of what that would look like, if it's something that it would even be possible here in that process.
All right. Thank you for that. I must admit, I do know that Auditor Sisak is passionate about this. I've read his various informative posts on this, but I have not dove into the deep end on impact fees yet. But I love the idea of doing this study, and give me more reason to go ahead and take the plunge into impact
Chairman
fees.
Salvati, there's a PowerPoint that was attached to the legislation that you can check out, and it really starts to be able to, there you go. The mayor has it. It's very worthwhile. It's a good crash course.
Yeah, I'll go for a good swim in the impact fee C. So with that, I open it up. It's late, so I'm just going to say anybody that has questions, just ask them.
Councilmember Savati, I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Typically, how long does the feasibility study normally takes?
The information that I have, it depends on how fast we pass it. I'm only asking for regular passage, so 3 reads, 30 days, and then I think it was about 90 days after that. So that would put us probably in around September.
Thank you.
Yeah, anybody else? Seems pretty seems like a pretty good plan.
That's straightforward.
All right, so I'll move to forward this ordinance to council for its first read. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Baker. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. Aye. Any opposed? All right, this ordinance will be forwarded to council for its first reading. And it's my pleasure to say that there's no further business for the Finance Administration Committee, and I return the meeting to President Jenkins.
Thank you. Next, we have item 10 on the agenda, consent agenda for emergency adoption. Items 10A through M are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for emergency adoption. Unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion, council will move forward to vote on these ordinances. Would the clerk please read items 10A through M?
Council President, I believe Mr. Cotner.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I know usually when we read these on a consent agenda, you go through all and they're voted as a group. But I think we need, at least I can point out some that I've got concerns that I'd like to pull separately if we want to do it that way, or and read the others. So whatever council clerk and attorney Shook, whatever, however we would need to do that.
Which I just named the item,
Okay.
the letter, and we'll pull those out and vote on each one of them individually.
E, G, H, J, and K, and L.
Okay, then Madam President, that would leave items A, B, C, D, F, I, K, and M as part of the consent agenda.
Okay, well, when you look on page 8, we have 2 J's. So after J, we need to renumber them.
Yeah, Councilmember Shook, which of those 2 were you interested in? Are those are both property ones, so you want both of those pulled?
So I'm reading the paper agenda that you've given me, and I'm looking at items J, K, and L, the 3 that have to do with the property purchases. And those are on page 5 of my paper packet.
Okay. And okay.
Okay, so at this time, we are including in the consent agenda 10A through D, F, I, J, wait a minute.
No,
not J, I, M, and N.
no, he wants M pulled, which would be the ordinance for the appropriation for the purchase properties.
Okay.
And so L would
So
be
it's L, M,
L and N,
L, and N?
as in Nellie, correct?
C and N.
Don't either.
No, that's not, I don't have those letters matching up the same way. I do not have an N on my
Let me grab.
Can we just read them all individually and just?
I have him.
Just go through and read them individually.
Yeah, it's quicker.
All right, we do not have an equal number besides the double J.
Hey, Molly, let's just go through each one.
All right,
That'll be quicker than trying to figure
All right.
it out.
so we'll start
If
with.
that's okay with you, Madam President.
Yes, that's fine, whatever's easiest.
All right, item A, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of a joint economic development district contract by and between Etna Township and the city of Reynoldsburg, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Madam President, you will need to ask for a motion to approve and a second, and then do a roll call vote on each of these items.
I only need one motion, or do I need two? I need a motion to approve and a second?
Yes, for each
Okay.
ordinance now.
Okay, so do I have a motion? Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion. Just keep going.
Councilmember Baker, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Savati, second. And all in favor?
No, I'll read the roll.
Roll. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Salvati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes and no nos.
Thank you. 6 affirm and no negative votes.
Just a quick question. Could somebody make a motion to make it a unanimous, or does it have to be a roll call vote for each one? Just out of question.
It has to be a roll call vote.
Okay, that's good enough. All right, let's go.
Item B, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Strasser Paving Company for construction services pertaining to the 2021 street improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Councilmember Baker, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Savati, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
6-0.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. Item C,
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with American Pavements, Inc. for construction services pertaining to the 2021 street improvement project, Contract B, crack ceiling, appropriating funds, and declaring an emergency.
a motion to approve.
Motion.
Councilmember Baker, second, please.
Second.
Councilmember Savati, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Salvati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
6-0.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. Item C,
D, an ordinance authorizing the
D.
mayor to enter into a contract with Pavement Technologies, Inc. pertaining to the 2021 street improvement project, Contract C, asphalt rejuvenation, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
may I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Councilmember Baker, a second.
Second.
Councilmember Savati, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Salvati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
6-0.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. Item E,
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Strasser Paving Company pertaining to the 2021 sidewalk improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
may I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second. Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Baker, a motion to approve first and second by Savati.
And then just to
I'm
comment
sorry.
on, I'm sorry, just to comment on that. I think a street pro or the sidewalk program is a good idea. I think the timing is just not a good time for this now with everything going and income issues. I just think that putting this burden onto homeowners and people in this time is the wrong time to do something that could be looked at later on. So that's my concern with this project is that it's just not the right time to be adding extra this kind of expense into homeowners and as an emergency in a one read and no input. Those are some of my concerns on.
If the property owner is given the information to fix their sidewalk and if they cannot do it, what is the ramifications?
If they choose not to do it themselves, then it would be assessed on their property taxes at the end of the year. Which, to be honest, if there's a if there's a complaint to us about a sidewalk, that we would have to come out, the homeowners would be responsible for fixing it regardless of which. This just localizes it to a very specific area.
And it generally goes a lot more aggressively too. Whereas no one's going to be complaining about a small crack in the sidewalk when we've got people going around looking and marking them with bright orange paint. It's a more aggressive program to go with a sidewalk issue.
Do we do that with other code enforcement as far as making the homeowner repair or fix, or do we
Yes,
do the same thing with code violations?
Yes, there have been a number of occasions with that. The most common in Reynoldsburg would probably be in the past has been cutting grass. If grass is not cut at a certain point in time, then those fees would be assessed to them at a later point. Sidewalks have also occurred just last year as well.
I know Councilmember Baker had mentioned that we look into the possibility of helping the homeowners. I don't know what kind of programs are out there for that, or if we have time to look into that in between the other reads, possibly.
We will look into that. Well, I believe this one is a one read. We will look into that as soon as tomorrow morning when we come in.
Also, I want to, President Jenkins, can I just say one
Yes.
statement? Also, there are some homeowners associations they forced a resident to make, otherwise there's a penalty. So around this time last year, there are many individuals from my ward complain that, and that's why I went and looked at it. And they had to make, otherwise there's a penalty of certain amount by homeowners associations. They have no choice. And I think this is a better choice because at least they have an option to choose, and there's most likely they'll get a better deal with the city than having some other people coming and doing things that people are doing by themselves. That's my point here.
Do we have any other comments from council? Okay, so if we don't have any other comments, then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve.
We have the motion. I just need to do the roll call.
Okay, so please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati. Lou, that was a yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah. It
Councilmember-
was a yes.
Okay, Councilmember Peckrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Nay.
and Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
That was 5-1.
5 affirmative votes and 1 negative vote. Item F.
Attorney Shook, does that meet our council standard for passing as an emergency measure?
What was the vote on that? Was it 5-1?
5-1?
Yeah, you need 5 votes for an emergency passage. That's sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Item F.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMH&T pertaining to inspection services for the 2021 street improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
A motion to approve.
So moved.
Councilmember Savati, may I have a second, please?
Second.
Councilmember Baker, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
6-0.
6 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Item G.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMH&T for inspection services pertaining to the 2021 sidewalk improvement project, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
A motion to approve.
Make
So
the move.
moved.
Councilmember Savati, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Nay.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
5-1.
5 affirmative votes and 1 negative vote. Item H.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Complete General Construction pertaining to the Main Street Improvement Project, Davidson Drive to Jackson Street, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Baker, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
I feel it's appropriate to say something too. I didn't get a chance to, but this is one, since some of this work being done on this particular issue is in of my property area, I feel it appropriate that I abstain, not to vote against, but I'm going to abstain from this vote for those reasons.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
5 affirmative and 1 abstention.
5 affirmative and 1 abstain. Item 8I.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Tool and Associates for professional plan review and inspection services and declaring an emergency.
May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Councilmember Savati, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Baker, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
You did a great job. 6-0.
6 affirmative and no negative votes. Item J.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase real property to be used by the city of Reynoldsburg and declaring an emergency.
May I have a motion to approve? May I have a motion to approve?
Motion. Yes, motion.
Councilmember Baker, may I have a second, please?
Second.
Councilmember Pacquiao, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Rowe.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Nay.
and Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
5-1.
5 affirmative votes and 1 negative vote. Next, we'll move on to, Next, we'll move on to K.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase real property to be used by the city of Reynoldsburg and declaring an emergency.
May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Baker, second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Salvati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cutner,
Aye.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
5-1.
5 affirmative votes and 1 negative vote. Next, we'll move on to L.
Madam President, when you
Yes.
look at your agenda there, you will see that this next item and the last item are duplicates.
Oh, okay.
And on the agenda published, I'm going to actually read what you're seeing as letter M now. So it will be letter L, but it will be an ordinance to transfer funds for the purchase of real properties to be used by the city of Reynoldsburg and declaring an emergency.
And that's item L? Okay. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second. Oh, nope, give it to
Councilmember
Councilman.
Pacquiao. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Salvati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Nay.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
5-1.
5 affirmative and 1 negative vote. M, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Tyler Technologies for New World System Software Annual Service, waive competitive bidding, appropriating funds therefore, and declaring an emergency.
May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Councilmember Baker, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Pacquiao. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye. My
Thank you. Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
6-0.
6 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Next, we'll move on to item 11, consent agenda for first reading. Items 11A through F are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a first reading unless someone would like to remove an item for further discussion. Council will move forward with a first reading. Would the clerk please read items A through F?
An ordinance to amend, remove, and add various sections of Chapter 971 Municipal Parks and the Code of Ordinances for the City of Reynoldsburg, Ohio. Item B, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the sale of real property located on Taylor Road to the West Licking Joint Fire District, said property consisting of 10.598 acres. C, an ordinance to establish Chapter 701 landlord-tenant relationships of the codified ordinances of the City of Reynoldsburg. D, an ordinance granting an easement to the Ohio Bell Telephone Company, AT&T Ohio, for the placement of small cell tower on 0.09 acres city-owned tract known as parcel numbers 060-000-215-00. Ordinance E, an ordinance to establish the Reynoldsburg Adopt a Road program. Item F, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a consultation contract with Tischler Bice, Inc. to complete a feasibility study report to determine the advisability of establishing impact fees in the city of Reynoldsburg and appropriating funds therefor.
These ordinances stand for a first reading. Item 12, consent agenda for a second reading. Items 12A through I are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a second reading unless someone would like to remove an item for further discussion. Council will move forward for a second reading. Would the clerk please read items 12A through I?
Item A, an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to remove equipment from the city's fixed asset list for the Reynoldsburg Parks and Recreation Department. B, an ordinance of support for the city's participation in the Central Ohio Rapid 5 project to connect Central Ohio greenways and appropriating funds therefor. C, an ordinance appropriating funds from the unappropriated general fund to the police department for donated monies. D, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease agreement with Modern Office Methods for the copiers for the police department and waive competitive bidding. E, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Star Consultants Inc. to conduct a needs assessment for the city's current public service and parks and recreation facilities. F, an ordinance authorizing the director of the public service to implement an annual sidewalk inspection, repair, and maintenance program. G, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an annual agreement with EMH&T for geographical information systems, GIS, maintenance and support. H, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental working agreement with Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District to support the Big Walnut Watershed Coordinator Program administered by Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District in coordination with and support from MORPSI and the state watershed programs with ODNR and the Ohio EPA, and declaring an emergency. I, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a governmental aggregation program agreement with Volunteer Energy Services, Inc. to provide full requirements for retail natural gas and related administrative services to an aggregated group.
These ordinances stand for a second reading. Item 13, consent agenda for a third reading. Items 14A through D are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a third reading and approval, unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion. Council will move forward with a vote on these ordinances. Would the clerk please read items 14A through D?
An ordinance appropriating funds from the unappropriated general fund to an account in the Community Events Department. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign the project grant loan agreement with the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, for the East Main Street Roadway Improvement Phase 2. An ordinance to authorize the mayor to enter into agreement with EMH&T to conduct closed circuit television, CCTV, data collection and analysis for the city's 2021 sanitary sewer maintenance and repair program. D, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMH&T to conduct surveying, design, engineering, and bid services for improvements to East Main Street, Jackson Street to Wagoner Graham Road, and appropriating funds therefor.
May I have a motion to approve these ordinances?
Motion.
Councilmember Baker, may I have a second?
A second.
Councilmember Savati? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strickland.
Aye.
Councilmember Savati.
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro.
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe.
Aye.
Councilmember Cutner.
Aye.
And Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
6-0. Oh, yes, 6-0.
These ordinances are approved with 6 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Item 14, other council matters. Does anyone on council have any further items that they would like to discuss this evening?
Thank you to all the essential workers.
Does anyone else on council have anything further to discuss? Item 15.
Just quick, thank you for everybody who donated to Helping Hands this weekend. The Lions Club for putting that on at Impact Church. They had a lot of donation. It was great. I enjoyed myself. It was a beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you. And even if you didn't make it this weekend, you're still welcome to donate as well. Do we have any other matters of discussion for this evening?
On a lighter note, this one is a little too late, but on 24th, that is Saturday, Councilmember Salvati and with some other volunteers in the community, we are cleaning Taylor Road. Again, trash picking at Taylor Road. So everyone is welcome to join. At 10 a.m., we are getting together in the Kroger parking lot and starting from there. So further details will be followed through different media, Facebook or whatever.
Thank you. Do we have any other items to discuss this evening? Upcoming meetings, there's a schedule, upcoming council, BZBA and planning commission meetings. Council anticipates continuing with virtual meetings through at least the end of April. Please note that the next council meeting is scheduled for Monday, April the 26th, and that begins at 6:30 p.m. Unless there's no additional business to discuss this evening, our meeting is adjourned and the time is 10:49. Thank you all for participating and being here and voting on these important matters and discussing them and bringing up important conversations. And thank you for staying on for this long meeting this evening. I appreciate your participation. Have a good evening and good night.
Good night. Have a good evening.
Good night.